Deep in modern-day Iran, carved right into a massive cliff face, there's a story. It's a story of raw ambition, of empires clashing, and of a king's claim to divine power. For centuries, these sculptures have been a silent testament to a forgotten empire's might. So today, we're going to be historical detectives. We're going to decode one of these incredible carvings and solve a mystery that's been sitting there for 1,700 years. All right, let's get into it. Okay, here it is. This is the scene, carved around 262 CE at a place called Naqsh-e-Rostam. And wow, the image is just pure power. You've got this victorious king looking absolutely majestic on his horse, just dominating the whole scene. And in front of him, you've got not one, not two, but three defeated Romans, all in different poses of humiliation. It's an amazing piece of political art, but if you look a little closer, you realize it's also a puzzle.
So what is going on here? We have one guy dead under the horse's hooves, we've got another one kneeling, practically begging, and a third being grabbed and held captive by the king himself. Now, these aren't just random soldiers. The way they're shown suggests they're very specific, very important people. So that brings us to the central question of this whole explainer. Who are these three Romans?
To figure out who the losers are, you first got to know the winner, right? The identity of these Romans is completely tied up with the guy on the horse and the huge struggle for power that was going on between the two superpowers of the day, Rome and Persia.
Now, this wasn't the same Persian Empire that fought the Greeks way back when. No, this was the Sasanian Empire, a new and really aggressive dynasty that burst onto the scene in 224 CE. And unlike the dynasty before them, the Parthians, these guys had a very clear mission. They wanted to restore the glory of the ancient Persian Empire, and that meant one thing: kicking the Romans out of the Middle East. They believed they were the rightful heirs to all that land, and Rome was just in the way.
And the king, on that horse? Well, this is him, right here, on this silver coin. His name is Shapur I, the second Sasanian king of kings. And this guy was a brilliant and absolutely relentless military commander. He ruled from 240 to 270 CE, and his entire reign was basically one long war against Rome. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty either, often leading his armies deep into Roman territory himself. And get this, he wasn't just poking at them, he was winning, and winning big. This timeline gives you the highlights, and it's the key to our mystery. In 244, he beats a Roman army. Then, from 252 to 256, he launches another even more devastating invasion. And then, in 260 CE, something that was just unthinkable happens. He actually captures a Roman emperor, Valerian, on the battlefield. So you've got three major campaigns, three major humiliations for Rome. Could our three carved figures match up with these three events?
Okay, so this gets us thinking. What if this carving isn't about just one victory? What if it's Shapur's greatest hits album, a summary of his entire career of beating up on the Romans? To test that theory, we need to compare the faces carved in the rock to the best portraits we have from that time, the faces stamped on Roman coins.
All right, let's break it down piece by piece. We're looking for three guys. Number one, the dead Roman under the horse. That's about as total a defeat as you can get. Number two, the kneeling Roman, who looks like he's begging for a peace deal or offering a tribute. And number three, the standing Roman, who's physically being held by Shapur. He's a prisoner of war.
Let's start with our first match, the poor guy under the horse. Now look closely at his face. He's young and very clearly has no beard. Now, let's compare that to the coin on the right. This is the Roman Emperor Gordian III. He was just a teenager when he was killed during Shapur's first campaign in 244. The resemblance? It's just uncanny. I think we found our first Roman.
Okay, on to Roman number two, the kneeling man. So after Gordian died, his successor, a guy named Philip the Arab, immediately tried to make a peace deal. And how did he do it? By paying Shapur a gigantic ransom. We're talking 500,000 gold coins. So this image of kneeling and pleading for terms, it fits Philip's story perfectly. And when you put the carving next to a coin of Philip, you can see the face, the hairstyle. It's another really convincing match. And that brings us to the last piece of this puzzle, the grand finale. The third Roman, the one being held captive, is clearly an older man. This has to represent Shapur's single greatest victory in 260 CE, the capture of the Emperor Valerian himself. I mean, this was a humiliation on a scale Rome had never seen. And once again, you compare the face on the stone to Valerian's coins, and it's a dead ringer.
Now, the visual evidence is pretty overwhelming, but believe it or not, we also have a smoking gun. Not too far from the carving, Shapur put up this huge inscription, basically his official story of his own reign. And in it, he just lays it all out for us. He literally names the 3 emperors he defeated in the exact same way they're shown on the relief. Gordian, annihilated. Philip, who came asking for peace, and Valerian, captured with our own hands. Case closed. The mystery is solved.
But, just identifying the figures is really only half the story. Now that we know who they are, we can ask a much more interesting question. Why? Why go to all the trouble of carving this massive thing? Because this wasn't just a history lesson, it was a powerful piece of propaganda, a message broadcast to the whole world.
To get that message, you need to understand this really core concept in Persian kingship. It's called Shapur I, which basically means divine glory. This wasn't just about being a good general. Shapur I was like a divine mandate, a supernatural stamp of approval from the gods that gave you legitimacy. So, for a Sasanian king, winning a battle wasn't just a political victory, it was proof that he was heaven's chosen one.
And this idea was everywhere in their art. Symbols like this ram were basically visual shorthand for that divine glory. So by defeating 3 Roman emperors, Shapur wasn't just conquering land, he was showing off his overwhelming Shapur. The carvings were a public announcement that the gods were on Persia's side, not Rome's. And Shapur really drove this point home by changing his own title. He started calling himself the King of Kings of the Iranians and the non-Iranians. Now, that might not sound like much, but it was a hugely radical statement. He was claiming to be the rightful ruler not just of his own people, but of all the captured Roman citizens, too. The reliefs and the title worked together, sending a crystal-clear message. There's a new world order, and a Sasanian king is at the center of it. So this powerful mix of military victory and divine right created an image of kingship that was so strong it would actually outlive the Sasanian Empire itself, which is just incredible when you think about it. And this is where the story gets really wild. Take a look at what happened after the Sasanian Empire fell to the Arab conquests a few hundred years later. On the left, you've got a coin of a late Sasanian king. On the right, that's a coin made decades later by an Arab governor. Do you notice anything? They're almost identical. The new rulers kept the old king's face on their money. And image, the special crown, the portrait, the whole link to divine power. It had become the universal symbol for I'm in charge here in that whole region. For decades, the new Arab rulers kept using it because it was a visual language of authority and stability that everybody, from merchants to local warlords, understood and respected. The propaganda that Shapur carved in stone created a legacy that just kept going for centuries. Shapur's carvings tell an incredible story of victory, all from his perspective. It was a narrative so powerful, it literally shaped the idea of what it meant to be a king for centuries to come. But it leaves us with one last kind of haunting question. This is the story the victors carved into a mountain. But what about the defeated? What stories of their own, stories of resilience, of tragedy, of defiance, were never carved in stone and have now been lost to time?